Cool.
Is this recording?
Give it a sec, I think.
I need to remember that. This arrived.
Ooh, I didn't realize that was like a print. I thought it was an online only.
It's really pretty.
Ooh, very pretty. Ooh, it's thick too. It's nice.
Yeah.
I'm gonna assume we're live. And we're recording, I assume. Yes, okay, beautiful. Welcome, everyone. I'd like to acknowledge that Annie and I are broadcasting today on sovereign Gadigal-Wangal lands. True custodianship of these lands belong and have belonged to Gadigal and Wangal peoples since time immemorial. Their jurisdiction supersedes and will always supersede the illegitimate and illegal occupation of these lands by a colonial government whose first prerogative is and has been since 1788 ethnic cleansing and genocide, and now who deliberately colludes with other illegal occupationist forces across the globe to enable ethnic cleansing and genocide, notably in occupied Palestine, across Turtle Island, and in former colonies around the world where Indigenous peoples stand on the front line of resistance. You're about to hear from one of my dearest friends and mentors, the brilliant Annie Te Whiu, who's recently published Puka Puka. Her book, the debut poetry collection Mettle, has also become a really dear friend to me since it was published earlier this year. Annie and I are grateful to hold this conversation as guests on sovereign lands. If you're tuning in today as a settler, I would encourage you to make acknowledgement of the lands you live and work on material by putting your funds towards mutual aid and paying the rent. My friend Lucia and I organise a mutual aid fundraiser that runs in perpetuity with friends in Palestine and for First Nations aid with the incredible Dunghutti activist Paul Silver. If you'd like to see Annie and I in person, you can catch us at 5 a.m. outside my house loading books into her car for the book sale arm of that fundraiser. You can also almost always find current mutual aid funds that divide proceeds between Palestinian families and First Nations initiatives on mine, Annie's and Lucia's Instagrams. Introducing myself, I'm a poet and editor based on sovereign Gadigal-Wangal lands just down the road from Annie. I'm currently working on a poetry collection that looks at local and global occupation and resistance histories from a Southeast Asian perspective, supported by Creative Australia and the Wheeler Centre's Next Chapter program in 2026. And I'm the proud facilitator of this year's amazing Toolkits poetry cohort. Anne-Marie Te Whiu, Te Rarawa, is a Sydney-based Australian-born-Māori who is a freelance poet, editor, cultural producer, and weaver. Her central praxis focuses on the potentiality of artistic collaboration and platforming the amplification of First Nations and POC writers and artists. Annie has directed, programmed, and curated festivals and events for over 20 years, most recently guest programming the Aotearoa NZ Festival of the Arts Writers Program and the First Nations Queer Voices exhibition for Qtopia. She has guest edited multiple poetry collections and journals, including the Woven Anthology, so brilliant, Whisper Songs by Tony Birch, Solid Air, Australia and New Zealand Spoken Word Anthology, and most recently, the Cordite Journal 116 Remember issue alongside Michaela Sahar. Annie's writing has been published broadly across Australia and Aotearoa in anthologies, journals, magazines, and exhibitions. She has been awarded several fellowships, including the Creative Australia Individual Projects Fellowship, Nilma Sydney Travel Fund, the Next Chapter Fellowship, as well as the Next Chapter Alumni Fellowship. She has served as a director on the boards of Runway Journal, Emerging Writers Festival, and Black and Bright. Annie has been the recipient of multiple writers and artistic residencies, including the Rowan Air Church Residency, the Runa Residential Fellowship, Gundanon Artist in Residence, Clothing Stores Artist Studio Carriage Works, and the Unyoked Writers Residency. Sorry, I didn't mean I didn't realize if you meant for me to read this whole thing out, but I'm just looking at you now and I'm like, just sit tight. Just you hang in there. This is a long bio. After this is over, we can go.
No.
In 2015, Annie completed a Master of Social Change Leadership through the Atlantic Fellows for Social Equity at University of Melbourne. Mettle is Annie's debut poetry collection published with University of Queensland Press. Welcome, Annie.
That's kia ora, my mates. That was
welcome.
Thank you. Hey, thank you so much for thinking of me to speak with. I'm very, very conscious of the fact that this is precious time and space that could go to so many people. You know, we could rattle off a lot of people that would be incredible in this position. So I just thank you, Lou. Thank you for this opportunity.
You are the one, bro. We're gonna have we're gonna have a really beautiful time. You can catch me and Annie just about any hour of the day having a 45-minute conversation anyway.
Imagine a backseat rider to our car rides.
Oh, exactly. Like, yeah, but this happens every day. Welcome everyone. We're holding you hostage for a bit. Just a few housekeeping things. This session will be available on YouTube as a resource and will be captioned in the coming days, so stay tuned for that. And if you'd like to ask any questions, I'd encourage those joining us to do so via the live chat section on YouTube. Would be really lovely to hear your thoughts. But Annie, can you kick us off by reading a poem from Mettle?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Such a beautiful acknowledgement too, Lou. I really, really appreciate that. Yeah, as Lou mentioned, I'm also on unceded Wangal lands, about 6 streets away from you. Hey, Lou.
It's great. Yeah, hey, no more than 5 minutes.
Hey. So this poem is called High Tide of Relationality, and it kind of opens up the space for you, for whoever's watching, to enter into collaboration with me. High Tide of Relationality. Ko te renga toku maunga, ko waiho te awa, ko hokianga te moana, ko waiho nui a rui te marae, ko te raroa toku iwi, ko waiako toku hapu, ko Anne-Marie Te Whiu toku ingoa. It's my pepeha, my descent profile, and it opens me and you up to the possibility of blood connection, and it situates us in relation to the landmarks where my bones belong. One of the starting points between you and me is here, on this page. I'll hold on to one end of a line, you the other. Let's pull the rope tight and learn from the tension and build from the slack. Thank you, Lou.
Beautiful. I love this poem so much, Annie. And I think it's so fitting that you chose to begin your poetry collection with relation, with your whakapapa, with your lineage, because this book is so full of love and openness for the people that walk alongside you in your practice. As a reader, we also get the immense privilege of being folded into that openness. And I thought it'd be really similarly telling to mention that at your book launch at Better Than Dead on Gadigal, your beautiful auntie got up and spoke about the significance of the publication of this this book in so-called Australia, where it's now the first book by a Māori poet to be published by an Australian publisher. Amazing.
Yeah. I don't know how you feel about that idea of being the first at something. I'm a bit. I think it should be acknowledged, but because archives and because truth telling. But I think when you embody that notion of being the first at something, there's a maybe it's the unease of the deep responsibility, and maybe it's the anger at that fact. Surely that can't be right, is my first response. But yeah, what do you think? Do you feel that, like, if your work won't be the first,
like within an identity? It definitely not the first Filipino poet working on these lands, and definitely not the first to be published. But I guess, to your point, there's that kind of manufacturedness of firstness that I find really interesting. It's often almost always kind of well, not always, there's something to celebrate in there at the same time that it kind of feels like a marketing gimmick sometimes. And that one is never truly the first. I think
Precisely. It just feels very colonial.
oh,
Yeah.
fully. And there's like a massive privilege in that the there was like the prevention of like a first emerging for so many of us, because it's like the doors of the publishing industry and kind of like the doors to authorship were like so firmly closed.
Slam shut.
Yeah.
Where's
And,
the door? Where is the door? Yeah.
Fully. And like I don't think it's any secret that it kind of remains so in many ways. Yeah, despite us living in a really exciting kind of a time that feels just so loaded with potential for so many of us that we're never able to enter through those gates. Yeah, but we could talk about that for ages, and we frequently do.
And we will.
And we will. But I wanted to go back to the beginning and ask you where and how poetry began for you. And then in line with this beautiful poem, High Tide of Relationality, I wanted to invite you to speak about who your relations are and who you look up to in your practice and in writing.
Thank you, Lou. Beautiful questions. Such open, beautiful questions. Where did poetry begin for me? So I come from people who are orators. If you stand on any marae, you'll be like, oh, bro is the best poet in town. Bro has never written a poem, and bro would never publish a poem. So there's this thing that I'm talking about with the gap of being the first. So Māori people are the first and the best poets from my whenua, from my country. And Aboriginal people are, of course, the first, the longest living, the first storytellers, the first poets. Off on a tangent. I was about to go there. Come back. Sorry. So how did I come to poetry in that kind of traditional sense that we're addressing poetry? Very much through lyrics as a child. So listening to the pop of the 80s, when songs were different. Songs were written differently then. And knowing every word by heart and reciting the words and singing along and knowing the language. Being brought up in a primary school with, the traditional, very white Western canon of, having to recite all of the blah-de-blahs, all of the jolly swagmans and everything like that. So very much that sort of 80s public schooling. And then writing in my diary as a kid that would often sort of evolve into poetry, little poems. I loved writing little love poems to my family. I loved writing little love poems to my friends at school, on little notes. So that's where it kind of, that sense of poetry, or I guess having a real love for language. But it didn't kind of formalize until I entered, got chucked out of, but did a double degree in drama and literature at university. And so entered poetry through that theatre lens. So with a really performative sense of how language can be transformative on the stage. Bruce Storr, I don't know if you know that name. He's one of the, I don't know if Bruce is still living. So he comes from that, I don't know how to describe Bruce. If you get a chance to Google him. But that real, I remember studying it and learning from him and thinking, it's not landing with me, what you're teaching me. And then it didn't really come in, poetry in that kind of formal way didn't come to me again until I was working at the State Library of Queensland as a public producer and was producing the Poetry Slam series for Queensland, and did that couple of years, so re-entered poetry again through the spoken word realm, and then went on to co-direct the Queensland Poetry Festival and blah 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 blah.
Oh,
but yeah, that kid with the little poems, you know, and really loving language, loving words, had a great love for language ever since I was a kid.
oh, so beautiful. And I think it's so I didn't realize that about you, that kind of like love of like music is what also similarly opened that door. And I want to ask you about that a bit more. Does that kind of trace of like musicality or being in love with this access to music that we don't really, or at least the kind of access that isn't really encouraged nowadays, which is that you know, and part of this, like you were saying, has to do with colonial education system that's very reliant on kind of memorization, but also that kind of like that attitude of memorization that you take towards the kind of music that you love, which I think is so poetic in and of itself. And it just makes so much sense that was kind of like the gateway to your practice.
And I'm just thinking about the background, like how my CDs firmly sit alongside my books. Like I really do treasure music and I have all of my I used to play the piano and the flute and have all of Mum's musical sheet music. Like I do regard those sheet. I'll frame them one day when I live in a rental where I can put things up on the walls. But the sheet music I do regard as poetry, like the lines of the way and the descriptions, the words that, you know, how you intermezzo or whatever the language is, I can't remember anymore. The way that language is used to describe music, even on sheet music, is very poetic and very beautiful.
It's exactly, and I think that it's funny, this is something that has come up in the Toolkits workshops every now and then, that kind of like advice I received from the poet Kinesia Lubrin. So at the Banff Centre, the Writers Intensive I did several years ago was if you're struggling with the rhythm of a poem, set it to music. Have your music on while you edit, and see that kind of it's often
advice.
Is that something you do, or kind of? I want to ask you how music is still present in your practice, or like is that something that's like conscious for you? What's your relationship with music and poetry like now?
Really, really intense and strong. Haven't weaving and poetry used to sit alongside each other a lot more firmly when I lived in a rental that facilitated the ability to weave. So weaving's quite messy, quite a lot of room. You've got to You've got to be able to move the fibers. They've got to be wet. You make a big mess. And in my current living circumstances, I haven't really woven in a while. But what I have, so I guess what has stepped in just definitely in the last 2 years since I've been here has been music. And I used to not consciously put on music while I write, but now I do. But having said that, music's an interesting one, isn't it? We've exchanged sounds that we've both listened to, and I'll even put on bird sounds. I'll play classical music, piano music, the hertz. There's supposed to, what are they called, those different hertz levels that you can listen to that are that tap into a harmonics of your physiology that encourage. So I'm very I love music. And my dream would be to write and you play harp.
This is also now that I don't have my harp with me now that I'm living in rentals, and like it's also one of those things that kind of like the poetic practice is so kind of like context and like spatially dependent. I find so interesting that your weaving had kind of informed your practice for like quite some time, but now that the like messiness of that isn't accommodated in your space. And then there's like this it's funny, I feel that we never do poetry in isolation. There's something about the kind of like intensity of language, or like that accountability to language that needs like another friend. It needs weaving. It needs music. It needs it needs someone else's language. It needs like I write with my favorite collections kind of like within arm's reach. I've never had that relationship where I can just kind of go to a studio in a blank room and sit down and write.
I think you're exactly right. I absolutely love that observation, and I totally agree in terms of, having those other voices around your whānau, your family around you. And I think also feeds into that is that sense of writing with responsibility. Who am I responsible when I'm right? Who am I responsible to when I'm writing? Who are the people that if Joy Harjo walked in the room, would Joy sign off on the last poem I wrote? If Eve L. Ewing walked in the room, would Eve go, yeah, that's okay, I agree, or whatever? So I too write with my friends, my books around me, definitely. Yeah.
Can you talk us through who those people are for you? Like who do you, when you're writing, what are the collections? Who are the people who are present with you?
Yes. Audrey.
Yeah.
She's right here. And I mentioned to you on the phone the other day, just picked up Alexis Pauline Gumb's this collection of essays. It's through Penguin, I've just realized. I haven't had a chance to really open it yet, so I can't speak too strongly to it, but I can see that there's poetry interwoven with it. Alexis Pauline Gumbs is a really significant person and deep influence in my work, and I discovered her through this person, Leanne Bedesamasake Simpson, whose most recent work, Theory of Water. Leanne is an Anishinaabe First Nations writer from Canada, and I should also clarify that Alexis Pauline Gumbs is a Black writer from, I want to say Chicago, but I could be wrong. So Leanne is a very significant person to me. Speaking of Black Chicago writers, Eve L. Ewing this collection is incredible, Electric Arches. I had this one up before, Layli Long Soldier.
Yeah.
And of course, Joy Harjo's right at the top of my pile. And then there are, First Nations writers are my go-to. Tony Birch. I've got all of Tony's beautiful whisper songs. I edited that one. The Promise is beautiful. All of the Pacifica, all of the Māori writers. This collection, if you've heard of NAHR Press, this is a very significant collection to me because it was the first time I really saw a gathering of contemporary Māori wahine writers together. It's on this beautiful, it's a taonga, which in Te Reo means a treasure. So it's this handmade, it's got the bind here, and it folds out like this. So it's seven Māori women, and it's got the Te Reo Māori language on one side and the English on the other. That really blew my mind, seeing that collection together, not only because of the existence of all of these wahine, all of these women together, but the object itself. When you know something, like that's how I feel about Joy's books. Like they just have a feeling, they sing. They sing too. And then I'd probably say over the last couple of years really have been deep diving into a lot of Palestinian writers. I don't know, we could talk a lot about that as well. I'm also just noting, I should say, I've got Evelyn's. Haven't read it yet.
Yeah.
Have you read the Rot?
No, not yet.
Yeah, I haven't either.
At the time of recording, the Rot has only been out for like a week, you guys. It's on the,
It's very much. I've only just got through Luke's.
Of
Luke's
course.
new book. Like really got through Luke Patterson's work.
Yeah, so Luke Patterson's work, for everyone watching A Savage Turn. Luke is a poet that everyone should just seek out and be so familiar with. His writing is like, Luke is one of my favorite poets. Yeah, but also I feel like we share a lot of poets that we love, and I think there was something
you and I do.
Yeah, definitely. Like, you pulled the book out and I was like, yep.
And isn't that a beautiful way to build another level of our relationality? Like, that means we're both speaking another unspoken language in a way. We're both able to really quickly and easily go quite deep into worlds that, if we weren't speaking the same poetic work, poetry is another vessel for us to enter into a portal of imagination that we can both go, yeah, I'm there. Yeah.
And I think there's this idea that I'm like so obsessed with in poetry, that it's like a form that's more relational than any other, in terms of kind of like genre and kind of like
I agree.
Literature that can be, I think these things are kind of more porous than kind of like various industrial complexes tell us they are. But there's a special thing you can do in poetry where you can increase the relationality of things, or you get to, your agency and responsibility is brought to bear on how you want things to be relational, which is part of the kind of responsibility of that work as well. And I find it so such a beautiful kind of like such a beautiful part of the process that I think we're very similar poets, but I think we're also quite different poets, but we're held together by kind of like all of this shared love for so many people that we have in common. And there was something really poignant that you said, which was you ask yourself as you write, would Eve approve of this line? Would Joy Harjo approve of this line? Would Alexis Pauline Guns approve of this line? And I want to kind of like bring it to a bit more of a granular place about your editing process. Is that something you ask yourself as part of like the work of looking back over your work, or maybe just describe your editing process in your own work a bit for us in the audience, because I'm so intrigued, having kind of like encountered your work in a workshop context and knowing you that way, and also kind of being privileged to see your work maybe before kind of you feel it's ready for the other people. Talk us through that a bit.
Yeah. So I guess I would approach editing in the same way that I do with writing a poem, in that, what relationship do I want to have with this poem? What am I trying to give body to here? So I really consider my relationship with the poet. What is the listen to, when you write, you listen to the poem, and I guess I do the same thing with editing. I do a long view. Really see and listen to the poet before the poem. So I enter into a relationship with the poet that involves whether or not it's cute text messages or phone call or a coffee. So it's being very conscious of the fact that you're building a very distinct relationship with that person, that probably will transcend friendship. It will enter the page.
Yeah.
So it starts, editing starts before you even read the poem, way before. Editing starts with the individual and listening to who the timbre of the person's voice, the energy, the rhythm. We write how we speak generally. We express. So I listen for, this is probably coming back to that musical thing again, with poetry. So I listen to how the poet speaks. I listen to their energy, and I tap into their politics and their values and all of those really kind of big things that make a human. Sense of humor is a massive thing. I listen to the energy of their humor and listen for the pauses and the way they deliver their bums. And then when you read the work, when you do finally get to the page, to the editing process, it's really being in conversation with that poet, isn't it? It's listening to their work and respecting them. And I'm not a heavy-handed editor by any means. My process of editing is very much around questioning rather than answering. I'll send back a page with questions rather than this is where a copy should be. This is how you should you should do a line break here. It's very much, have you considered? How do you feel about this? Have you read this poem and maybe you could anchor the work in that, so it's very much it's kind of weaving. It's excuse me, sorry. Sorry, Lou. It's weaving that conversation. It's having a conversation with the poet, essentially. And what you want as an editor, it's kind of like being a coach. You want the best for your team. You want the best for the poet and what's on the page. You want them to elevate and to amplify their voice as much as possible. So, yeah, I think that's probably a really long-winded way of talking about it. And also the other thing is, I'm speaking to you quite differently to how I would speak to someone else. Our relationship is strong, it exists. So there's different boundaries, there's different I know, we know where we can and how we can push and pull our connection and our conversation. But when you're meeting someone, a new poet and you're working with them, you approach that with you give them their mana, you give them their respect, and you work with it. And
I love just the directionality of that, which is like, in this Western kind of like publication construct, you deliver your work, and then it's kind of like you may have no relationship with your editor beyond kind of what arises just out of convenience in kind of the editorial process, and then your work is published, and so be it. It's a process that I think just like colloquially a lot of people find quite alienating, and doesn't allow you to kind of like retain agency over what is your something that's come from quite deep within you. It can be quite objectifying and a bit, and I think also like quite violating if you have an editor that hasn't that's not coming from that hasn't respected kind of like
that's right.
And I think this sense of kind of like I enter into relation with you, not to kind of like to bring the work to a place it isn't already, but rather to kind of like the cycles of questioning and cycles of kind of like are you aware that this piece of are you aware that this exists and that your work for me is kind of like pulling in that, like in high tide of relationality, like that sense of building from the slack.
That's right, Lou. Thank you for getting it. Thank you so much for getting it. That means a lot. Thank you. Yeah, it is. It is. and I actually do. I kind of, I don't know what's another word for tension. Taught. When things are taught, it can, and then it slackens, and then it tightens again, and then it slackens. So it's that sort of process. It's harmonic. It's like a harpsichord. Yeah. Is that instrument? What's that instrument?
Oh, that harmonica, is that one?
That's a harmonica.
Sorry, harmonica. The accordion.
It's accordion.
Accordion, the one that, yeah.
So when you stretch it and there's air in it and there's room for it to grow and it's doing its thing and then it contracts, and I think that's the work of editing. I really do. Yeah.
Fully.
Yeah.
And I feel like so much of that kind of like is kind of written into the DNA of poetry already. I hadn't realized like how much of a beautiful privilege it was kind of like facilitating this amazing cohort. I can't wait for you to meet them. It was like hearing them read their work out loud, just in advance of workshopping, is like, you're telling me how you want me to read you. And kind of maybe the work of the workshop is really just kind of like bringing kind of like gently if there's something, what we offer to each other is really just to kind of like bring the work into alignment with kind of like what is already what is already kind of like innate, or what is already you in the work.
I love that actually.
It's like
I really love that. Yeah. And it's also that thing of bringing it into alignment. If we're talking in that phrase with that kind of lens, what's also interesting about that is if it's brought into alignment in that moment, it's because two people as who they are brought it into alignment at that moment. But what happens when those people change and grow and they come back to the poem? Does it potentially need to be realigned, or does the poem continue to grow? Or you know what I mean? Does the poem, can poems grow as the individual, the writer and the editor grow? Yeah. The page can be so limiting because it's like, that's it. It's like, so yeah.
I love that idea of like the point is relation, and not this kind of like notion of perfection that there's like and that everything has to like service the poem until it reaches that point, and then it's done, like you put it on the shelf and that it's like served its purpose. And I think it reminds me so much of your work with Woven, which I'm so curious about, and also just has your name written all over it. The fact that it is Woven, I'm like, this is, you don't even have to have your name on the book. I'm like, this is Annie all over. I'm so curious about, I wanted to talk about your approach to bringing poets together across continents, poets who may have no pre-existing relationship or no kind of own relationality, I guess. Which is not true, kind of in the, it's just shorthand to describe kind of what it might have looked like. Where does your editorial intelligence, your guidance, your collaboration happen in that relationship between the two poets? If it happens at all, like, or if you're just totally backseat, totally like, here to facilitate, but you grow what you want and what you make of this together.
That's definitely that's a case by case. Editing Joy Harjo's work, like editing Ali Cobby Eckermann's work, editing Layli Long Soldier's work, like editing Leanne Simpson's work, and Nat Harkin's like, so that that's very much about understanding where you are in the family, isn't it? That's really understanding what your role is and how you can best bring the book together. That was a very interesting project, and it's actually, you mentioned the masters in the bio, and I've just hit on it on Sunday, so it's very fresh in my mind. I've been writing for 12 months about this notion of poetic collaboration and the power of First Nations poetic collaboration. What does it mean? Why do it? For what, to what end? And I kept throughout, when I talk about woven, I really put the hat on a facilitator rather than editor, because I don't know that facilitator is even the right word, and I don't know that editor was the right word, because it was it kind of crossed boundaries in terms of role, and it was very much a listening process. What do the poets want? Most of the poets in Woven wanted a deadline, because of how busy they all were. They actually they wanted reminders. So I guess that's a true facilitation kind of process. They wanted clear guidelines, and they wanted to know, when do I need to get this work back? And that was outside of the relationship each of them had. And then there was me working in an organisation answerable to a funder. So it was this kind of, I was constantly, at the shoreline, just watching all these waves come in, going, okay, how do I? But the priority was ensuring that the connection between each of the paired poets was on solid ground, that it had what it needed to, when you're facilitating poets who are working in totally different time zones, it really is very challenging. And also that was I really began in earnest during COVID. So we were working in the new world of Zoom, like, you're on mute was said every phone call many times. Like, we were still how do we do this? How do we, I do want to mention just on that, this book was really important. Lana Lucresi's False Divides. Sorry about my Lana, an incredible Samoan writer, academic, but she this was a really transformative book that helped me realize what woven could be. I'm just trying to find a passage if I can read. It's all pretty much, the whole book is underlined. I'm just going to can I quickly read a couple of lines?
Yes, absolutely.
Generally speaking, Moana peoples in diaspora retained strong connections with home through frequent communication, remittances, and return visits. From the 1990s, the internet provided another way to stay connected with diaspora. The new flow of people and new flows of technology gave rise to a global Indigenous voice and public persona, of which Moana peoples were a part. Perhaps this can offer a solution to my question of how to get to know each other again. I can't recommend engaging with Lana Lucresi enough. Yeah, just that concept of, she wrote this around that time of COVID, which is when, as I say, when Woven really kicked off.
And also oh, sorry. no, there was a question in there that was that, and how to get to know each other again, which is kind of like
that's it, Lou.
Yeah, that ground. Well, it just strikes me that, like, your practice is so, yes, like this book, it's you, like it, it's just like the beauty of it is so you, Annie. But then there's this whole other thing you're doing, which is like collaboration, platforming. How do we kind of bring people into the space that have been really into spaces that have previously been really quite hostile, and how do we make that safe for you? And it's so important to mention that, like, a lot of this work, I think for you, happens behind the scenes. It's
Oh,
happening
yeah.
in addition. Like, it
Oh,
happens like it in a way that's quite private, but in a way that's quite protected.
It is exactly. A line that really impacted me from Theory of Water, Leanne's recent book. Have you got this?
Yeah, I bought it when.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say I'll link it to you immediately. There's a line in it, something about the way that elders tell stories or share what they want to share is often done quietly. And that really resonated. After these last couple of years of being very, very loud on the streets, we have been very loud. We've been very, very loud. So there's this kind of returning to, I think we need to maintain the rage, don't get me wrong, but I feel like the work of poetry can often be, and particularly that collaboration that if you're talking about producing or editing, it's very quiet, and is private the word? Maybe for me it might be sacred. It's kind of sacred work.
Yeah.
You know, like it's the way in which we say, I want you to be vulnerable with me. I want you to know what you share is safe with me. Because if you know that, then I'm going to reciprocate. And that is often the deep work of poetry that doesn't land on the page per se. It finds its way. It's a tool. Those conversations, they facilitate the poetry in a way. Yeah.
So deeply and beautifully said, that there's this, like, that notion of the undercurrent of work that happens kind of above or below the real work. That's like, it has to happen in order to, maybe, like, I don't know, I say integrity, but I'm like, that's not the right word.
We are bound by English.
I know, it's such a, I'm like, it doesn't quite, like, that the English language is always
know exactly what you're saying.
Like that. Yeah. Hey, and this talk for, like, oh no, you go.
No, I was just going to say, this is that thing that I just realized. Have we reached our time? Sorry, Lou.
No, never be sorry. We could talk
started
until, like, like it's all over. Like, could I ask you to finish us up with another poem? Mettle.
Are you sure? What about a poem from you, Lou?
Ew, no. I don't know. I don't know what that's about.
You don't be open to that.
I don't prepare anything.
Would you consider it?
Can I read a piece I really like from you?
No, I would love your work. I want to hear your work. Take your time, because while you're finding a poem, I'm going to you find your poem. I'll just quickly I just got this beautiful book as well. And here's another Audre Lorde book. The Black Unicorn. Have you got Dakota Ferrier's Arsenic Flower?
No, not yet. I'm gonna Dakota Ferrier.
I'll loan it to you. Although not strictly poetry, decolonizing methodologies is the Bible. Louise Erdrich is also who I'm reading. If I can just quickly share a couple of, I'm just going to say a few Māori poets that people want to tune into that. Let me know when you've found your poem. I would recommend Arahia Latham and Hina Moana Baker and Nicole Titihuia Hawkins. And so many. Oh my gosh. Actually, all of the names are spoken to me now. But how are you going?
Oh, look, I found something, but don't. It's like everyone is sick and tired of my voice. They've heard me. Like, we want to hear you.
Go for it, Lou. I want to hear you.
All right. I'm being bullied.
Yep.
Into this. Okay, I'll just read it. I'll read a short one called God is Trans. We wake alert in the inheritance of a life, whole memoried, grief-addled, tongue-tied for a wider lexicon of refuge remembrance and border touch. Relation terminaled over a scrap of language, a name not used but remembered, hot and violet bruising cosmos, wrong star constellation and too deep dark, forgetting no gender is a white sail omen, is a war waging, a fatigue gravity woken up to, threat thick and heavy, or a dread, dawn trembling and sleep distressed, lying wait for knives to gouge the night. There, love broken into, floorboard rattled and tongue torn, unspoken awful and bruise bent surrender, many kin devoted to bird-caught bone song and synonym for alive, a calling to cradle that does not index the dead, but their sigh within a hair's breadth of hurt's potential, echo love, held and hopeful. We recognize each other in the other life, where not so hurting carapace and chrysalis bloomed into no captive fledgling, but the mountain eating wind, reach into home and deliver not relic, but an ocean of possible, dream wings and fire life. Know what you must do to nest back to it. Bloom everywhere.
Get out.
We both got to get out.
So many lines. I was like starting to write. Oh no, this line. Oh no, that's the line. Oh, but I did write.
Send it to you, bro. You don't
lying awake for knives to gouge the night. Who are you? How very
You did this. You did this. No one asked for this or wanted. Okay, we got to get out of here. We got to fuck off. Yeah, I know. I'm so.
I'll see you tomorrow.
Annie, I'll see you in 5 minutes, bro.
Okay. All right. That was an incredible poem. That was incredible. What a beautiful way to wrap us up. We didn't even talk about the power of queer poets.
That's another. That's another 45 minutes that we're gonna.
Okay.
Stay tuned, everyone. It's coming.
Thank you, beautiful Lee. Thank you, my bro.
Love you so much, Annie.
Love you too, darling.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.